Welcome to ReCreate with Canva, where we find a great design online and try to recreate within Canva to stretch the abilities of the software. Today's design comes from Steve Wolf, an absolutely fantastic designer, and a beautiful business card that he's put together. We'll see how close we might be able to get inside Canva. Let's get started. So as I mentioned, today's design comes from Steve Wolf, a phenomenal designer, and the particular one we're looking at is a business card he created here. Strong, bold shapes and colors. We're looking really great. If you go to his Dribble page, so dribble.com, wolf_Steve, you'll see a ton of fantastic designs he's put together, a really beautiful aesthetic and quite diverse range. So certainly worth a look for inspiration and to see what he can put together. But for our purposes here today, we're going to try to recreate it. And again, that's dribble.com, wolf_Steve. See what we can do to recreate it. And as I always like to mention at the top of these, I do not suggest you ever copy one for one a design. This is really about using it to learn the software, figure out how we might be able to recreate it. And if you ever want to kind of mimic someone online, remember it's about inspiration, not theft. So taking on a style and seeing how you apply it to your context to make it look beautiful. So the things I can see, that big bold letters here, we're going to have to create some sort of shape into the corner with a sun and a mountain, and then kind of a dot grid here, which, if we create just individual dots and duplicate them, that'll be one way. I'm curious if there's an element for that. But let's get started. So let's first create the kind of front or the back, depends how you want to look at it. Let's create the part with the text here first. So go into big letters and then content of the actual business card in the top corners. So the font they're using is a serif meaning that they have the little feet at the end. In this case, there's only one of it, so almost like a serif sans serif mix. But generally a serif, we'll see what type of font we can find. I'm going to start by using the letters he has as far as G, the ampersand, and to quickly duplicate things, if you grab it and while moving it around, press Alt to duplicate. Right. Sorry, so that's correction. So press before you click it, press Alt and then Shift, and in so doing it'll copy it. So before you're clicking it, press Alt and Shift, click it. Now click it, and before you move it, press Alt and Shift and move it. So one more time, click it, press Alt and Shift, and as you move it, it'll duplicate it for you. Real fast way. Of course, there's always the famous copy and paste, Control V, Control C, or Command if you're on a Mac. All right, let's go with an ampersand. Let's duplicate again, and T. Now I'll use different letters, but I just want to see how close we can get to the really nice font that's used there. So we'll bring it up. Let's see what we can do about ampersand, one that we have access to. It's a similar type of feel, though fairly off. That might be an option for us. A real fat face. It's got some of the geometric shapes. I don't mind that, so it's definitely not the same font. Oh, it's not. G and M, I messed up there. Kind of just really like that G, not so hot on the M. Let's keep on going. See what we can find. See sans, which is not going to help us one. Now, I don't want to spend great lengths of time on just the font. Of course, if you're working it, you could try to find something fast. You know what? I'm going to roll with this. I like how the ampersand here has that same type of line, and the G is fairly bold. But I don't want to spend too much time just on the font alone, so I'm going to go ahead and roll with this one. It's in the same vein. I kind of like how those look. Okay, so the three of them are different sizes. The and is much bigger. So let's get the G and the M together and let's scale those. Super big. It looks like they're a little bit smaller and the ampersand kind of touches below the other one. Let's start about there. Yeah, think about really talented designers like Steve Wolf here, is their ability to find just the perfect font is really unmatched. Like finding great fonts is a true skill. Now we're going to have trouble with the one we chose because it's a little bit too thick. So unfortunately we're going to have to find a new font. Let's see what we can find. So skipped ahead a bit here just to save the font exploration. Eventually ended up with Abhaya Libre Extra. And 3 of these, I like the shape of them and how when the ampersand is made much larger, it still feels like it fits with the other 2 letters. Now, clearly not as beautiful as the font here, which I'm half curious if it's actually a custom one that the designer created, but I'm going to be fairly happy with those 3. Now, I'm going to go with the kind of light blue here. Actually, let's go with the orange. That's a really beautiful orange. Now, to grab that, we're going to go to the eyedrop tool. This is a Chrome extension that lets you pick out any color from a web page. Completely free, so just search eyedropper extension for Chrome. We'll go ahead and pick something from the page. Grab this orange. It's now here. And we got it. So it's going to grab this number. Let's go down to the down to our letters and get this in as a color. Paste and done. Now it looks like he's used the text on the top left and the right for the various information. Let's add that in. Much smaller. Looks like it's fairly small, so let's go ahead and bring maybe all the way down to a 6. Might have to go smaller. We'll start there. First name, we're going to want to put that text on the left. Seems like it's the same color. So I'll grab that one. And the name is bolded. Tell you what, let's copy it quickly, and then we'll bold it. So name, it's called it owner and partner. Let's reduce the line height there, sneak it up, keep it nice and tight. It's one piece of information. Okay, duplicate this at least. Make sure it's lined up with the top of this one here. Position, line to the top. And let's bring it all the way over. And let's get this aligned right. I think the right side just has information, phone, email, and website. So P 56 899. Let's copy it. Now, of course, you could just press enter and then work with the line heights. I tend to sometimes like to just have it an entirely separate text element so we can move it around, have a bit more flexibility. Let's put the website here too. www.websites.com. Okay. So we have the general part of it now. One thing to note is when I'm moving these things on the left side, it's aligning with, it's not ending up aligning with the true left of the G. You'll see that the shape here, there's a bit of a space between the G. I want this to really be lined up with that. So a really quick trick with that is if we go over to elements, search for square, and if you've seen any of my other videos, you see I do this all the time, but I want to measure the actual distance between the side of the G and the side of that. Well, I accidentally almost got it perfect the first time. That will happen sometimes. But now let's use that same amount of space and get that on the top as well. So you have that same amount of space going all through it around it to make it nice and level. Let's move that here. Move these guys down. You know what? I want the letter to touch, not just the box, the bounding box, I should say. There we are. And one more time. So the letters are touching, and I want the same thing with the M, so I'm going to squeak that over. There we go. So we got that same spacing throughout. Get rid of these. And there we generally have it. Let's move these letters up a little more to be closer. I wonder if we can increase the size of this without losing the balance too much. Okay, so we have made our first page. Not looking too bad. Like I said, the font really is playing an important role in those three shapes, but we've tried our best to mimic that, duplicate that here. Now let's look on to the back, so we'll add a new page. We're going to want to change the background color to that same orange. And let's draw out our shape. So we want to have one big border all around it, and then cut it up into a bunch of squares otherwise. So we'll find a border. See if we can find a thinner border. Because otherwise we're going to need to use lines, because I'm not seeing a thin enough border, and I want to have real control over how thick those lines are. And I feel like this will be too thick. Let's see if we can get our other trick to work for making this small as well. So same trick with lines. If it is too thick, all you have to do is widen it, use the tabs to make it bigger and smaller, and then scale it. When you scale it, you'll reduce the size of not only the shape, but also the thickness of the line. So this actually is kind of a cheat to being able to ensure that you can get a thinner line, which we want to, so we can achieve this look. So now that we have it about where we want it, as far as thickness goes. So again, all I did was to widen it using the tab, then scale it using the corner, which caused the actual thickness of the line to reduce. Same trick here. Let's make sure we got the exact same spacing around. So a little square, bring it all to the corners and the sides. And I think we nailed this one up too. Okay, great. So it looks like we then cut it in half. So let's copy the shape, paste it. Get it to a line. Let's get this to the line to the right, and let's cut this in half. There we go. Canva indicating for me when I have it in half. Great. Next, looks like we're going to have two different thirds. So a third on the top here, then a third on the bottom there, creating a nice balance. So copy and paste the square. So not using, at this point, I was tempted to use the corner to scale it, but that would actually reduce the weight of the line, and I want to make sure all these lines are exactly the same. I'm going to have to come back here and rearrange it to make sure these two lines are perfectly lined up. I'll have to come back and fight with that a bit. Actually, it might be worth doing that now. Yep. Let's zoom in. them out. Copy and put this into the corner. There we go. So next we want to just create a small little square. Very thin should be the better word. Goes with that. And that gives us our basic shape. Now I've run into an issue here where the lines are not lining up nicely, creating some thicker and some thinner. And since I can't get it to quite go where I want, it looks like the more true way to do this will be to actually draw lines. So back to the drawing board, so to speak. So lines, put in a line, and we're going to have to do the same trick. It looks like it's actually true white, so let's go ahead and change this to white. And now what we're going to have to do is same trick, so make it much wider and then scale it. And scale it until we get about the same thickness. Make sure this is a white color so it stands out the same. And I think that looks pretty good. Alright, so this is what we'll use to build our squares instead so we don't run into the double line issue to make it thick. 90%, let's put it into the center. Now we're going to have to zoom in every time to grab the edge and extend it. So where this zoomed in, let's kind of finish up our work here. So that's a third. Click, grab the edge of it, move it over, copy and paste. Same thing down in the corner. About a third. Now let's make sure those two are the same. Always, if you can, as much as possible, if this spacing or the sizing is the same, it's going to feel like everything is purposeful and orderly, which will really help. So if that's the size roughly of our top one, let's make sure our bottom one is the same. And one more time, copying this for a smaller shape. Except it doesn't go all the way up. Okay, so drawing it with lines, just ensure that we're not going to have any double lines that would make it look too thick. And that gets us to where we want. So closing out now, in this case he actually writes out the full name. In this case, great and main. You know, I'd wanted to, but maybe perhaps my own initials there. Or perhaps we can go with JD for just enough design. Make it a little larger. I'm tempted to make this J bigger than the D, but I want to have that kind of balance, so maybe 105. Same here. Oops, 105. Make sure they're aligned. Seem to be, which is great. Okay, the reason I'm doing this is I'd like to, let's copy that. I was going to put the 3 letters, but let's go ahead and just spell out my name in the bottom corner. Let's turn that white. Let's make that smaller. I have to make it even smaller than that to fit it all in, but just design. Again, I'm being fairly literal in my copying of this, which I do not recommend. It's really just, you'd want to be inspired by something, but for the purpose of trying to learn how to compose stuff in Canva, that's what we're doing this here. So that point went in there. Now we need one more square, actually, it seems, into the corner where we're going to have some sort of sun shape. Now we're going to have to figure out how to create this sun shape and see if we can find enough elements in the Elements tab to add to it and create it. So it's a sun with a triangle on the bottom. So let's see here. Let's actually add a new page just so we have somewhere to work with, so we're not kind of constrained and we might not mess up anything. So added a new page just for working. let's find elements. Let's look for lines. I'm going to be looking for lines that are kind of blowing out from like a sun, from a circle. There's kind of a similar one with a triangle. Looks kind of cool. Something similar kind of with a moon. Trying to find it here. Lots of shape options, not whoop. There we go. That is just about perfect. Excellent. Really good. Okay, so next is we're going to want a kind of a mountain going in front of it. In this case, kind of a triangle. So we need some sort of square if we can get back to shapes. If we can find kind of a wide triangle. And I think the way to do it is if, oops, didn't really want to blow up the size that much. I think the way to do it will be to cut off the bottom using this. Let's see if we can find anything flatter. You know what? This pentagon might have an even better shape for us. Yeah, it's a bit wider. Let's see here. Yep, that's a bit wider. Then we're going to turn this orange. So it cuts off the shape. And then we'll just apply some lines. Same lines here, so it's always the same thickness, which would be kind of nice. And we'll adjust it so that it follows along the shape. I'm going to bring this back for just a second so I can see what I'm doing. Let's zoom in here. And I'm doing a short keyboard shortcut there of Control and the plus sign, plus an equal key, which allows me to zoom in. Okay, there's one. Control copy, or copy paste I should say rather. Let's get this over to this side. Alright, let's change that back to the orange to cut it off. Let's group the sun itself, and let's group it with the sun above it. So we've created our shape. I don't think, let's see. So I think the other thing we're going to have to do is place it where we want to, and then place some shapes on top of it, more orange, to cut it off. As I don't think masking works quite yet. So we've grouped that. We've created our sun. So let's get that up into the corner. Let's bring it to front. Gonna scale that down. You see the benefit of like not trying to work within that tiny little square to get this to work. Okay, so that puts it up nice. I mean, the other option, of course, is you could download this as an image, as a PNG, and then be able to crop it in the specific size. And that's if you have Pro, because then you can download it with transparency. Wouldn't work. Well, even since it's orange, you wouldn't really need it. But of course, the challenge would be, would the orange be perfect to this orange when you download it with a little bit of compression? Maybe. So I'm going to show, tell you what, that's actually kind of interesting to me. Let's do that both ways. So first way to do it is we're just going to grab these squares, right? We're going to make these orange. So it looks as if I'm going to copy and paste it, put it to the other side, and then we'll just move the whole thing to the back. Copy and paste it, shift it. The fun thing with design software is eventually you realize like just how many similar ways there are to achieve the same goal. So now I'm going to copy them all. I'm going to group it so I don't have to re-grab them, and I'm move them to the back. And there we have it. So sneaked it in, Did it a little bit dirty, but no problem in the slightest. Now, the other way to have done it would have been, let's see, select everything, come down here, and this way now I'm just going to delete some things in front instead of trying to rearrange it. Oops, that's square I needed. Okay, so I'm going to make this large. Large there, great. I'm going to go ahead and download. So download just the one particular page though, number 5, as a PNG, high quality image. Downloading it, and now it's there. Now I'm going to upload it. Because the additional benefit of working with an image is you can crop it. So as opposed to, really cheating with having to, I'm just having some issues in placing it. So I'm gonna click. So this is a good one. This will actually be kind of good to show. So this is now as a PNG. Let's get rid of that for now. This is original. I've uploaded the PNG. We'll come back around to it. So this is good to show. I can't click on this right now. The top square is in the way. I'm going to right click. I'm going to send this one to back, and I'm going to do this sequentially until I can get to the shape that I need. In this case, now I can click on it. So I'm going to kind of just delete all these elements now. There's this one here. We can delete that. So if there's, because what you can do is you just keep sending things to the back until you can get to where you want to, make the edits you need, and then send it to the back again. Everything else into the back. So it's kind of like bringing it to moving everything out of the way, doing the edits, and then moving everything back to where it was. So now that that's the case, let's go ahead and just, we've downloaded this image as a PNG. We're going to move it to where we want it roughly, and we're going to crop it to the shape we wanted. So because now this is a photo, this is the live element, actual created in Canva. This is the photo we downloaded. And as you know, with photos, you have lots of cropping tools that we can use. So I'm gonna, well, as opposed to shaping it, it's now cropping it where I don't want it. That's okay. Go ahead and zoom in. Now it's a little bit easier to work with because it's just a simple image. And this, once it's in the right space, again, I want the white lines on top of it, so right click, send to back, and there we are. So different way to cheat at that one. So the final one is we're going to want a kind of dot matrix here on the right side. Dot, 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 dot. Now one way to do it that I'm going to try to avoid doing it will be to draw that many circles, and I have a few tricks to show you how to speed that up. But I'm going to see if within elements it has kind of a bunch of dots that we can just sneak in, save ourselves a bit of time. And let's click on the free. No need to pay something. Series of 3 dots. That doesn't seem to help us too much. They have dots, but they're not exactly in a row. And the distance doesn't look like we're gonna have a lot of control over that. Yeah, these ones are all funky shapes so that we can change it. Yeah, not quite what we want. Although I guess the only thing is, now it seems to be kind of a random pen. I was wondering if we got rid of some of these colors and just made it orange so it would disappear, but I don't think that's how it works. I think we're stuck. I think we're going to create it the old-fashioned way, which actually ends up being kind of an interesting lesson to save a bit of time. That's not bad. You know, they were much further apart, and I like how that looks better. Okay, let's just get into it. So what we're going to do, circle. Add it in. If I look back at the design, it looks like it's just a flat white, which is really nice. Going to want to zoom in a bunch so I have a real control over the size of it. So a nice subtle small circle. Now we're going to do at this point I'm just going to paste a whole bunch and not worry too much about it, because what I'll do is move it as tall as I want, select them all, then we're going to use the alignment tool to help position it correctly. So position, we're going to want to space evenly vertically, so it's exactly the same up and down, and then align to center. So doing that quickly got them into the position we wanted. You know, I think we probably need one more dot. Now you could worry about, you know, clicking into each one and moving it around, but again, because we know we have position and alignment, easy enough to move. Position, so we space these evenly, vertically. There we go, that looks better. Now at this point, what I'm going to suggest is you group this. So we have this vertical slice of dots. You of course could have done it horizontal, not a problem. But now this is what we'll duplicate. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's do 8 across so it's equal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now let's not worry about the spacing, because same trick. I can get my clicks a bit more accurate. And we'll do position, and we'll space that horizontally. There we have it, a dot matrix. Now I think the spacing on the top and the bottom, again, let's go back to the square one. As much as possible, when you can get these minute details of ensuring that the spacing is the same throughout, it really benefits. Let's get that. There we go. So that's right into the middle of the dot. This is a square, so we're going to want to take this and make sure it's in the middle of the dot. Excellent. Now, because that's the case, I'm going to move it down and see if I'm doing so. Okay, so that's just touching the dot. Let's move it into the center of the dot for a good measurement. Still not quite there. Okay, so now it just shows a little top of it. Little top of it. Okay, that feels better. Let's see. So I had made it not a perfect square, so I'm actually going to rotate it to make sure the left and right alignment is correct. Let's do that over to this side here. There we go. Okay, so that spacing is better. So let's align these all to the top, that we have the more centered space. So I took that square, I made sure that the spacing was the same on the top, bottom, left, and right. Now that I've done so, I need to ensure all of them line up. The first one is pushed down, the rest of them aren't. So we'll align to the top. Should have almost guessed that would have happened. So okay. Let's instead try, if I push these down, will it bring them up? There we go. Because that was the only one, because only the left side was down, it assumed that it wanted to move it up. So instead I just moved everything else down, and that snuck it up. Control Z is always your friend. Given the spacing 2, let's position, space this out horizontally. How would it feel if we added one more? It's a little evenly spaced. It just feels a little bit wide compared to the other one. Let's position. Let's put that horizontally. That feels great. All right. And there we have it. So a couple tricks along the way as far as downloading a PNG so it's easier to manipulate and move around there. We have the dots where you can just put as many as you need, get the top and the bottom one in the position you want, and then use the distribute evenly and then the align center to have that done very simply for you. Copy it, put it into a group, and then copy that row of dots now as many times. It could be dots, it could be lines, any number of things, but if you group it and copy it, it'll make it a lot easier. We took our text, took big letters, had to find a somewhat similar font, definitely not as beautiful as the original designer had. We initially tried to do squares within this shape here, but we found that the lines were not matching up nicely, which created some double thick lines, which is no good. So instead we just did lines to get them nice and thin. We continued to make it longer and then scale it, longer and then scale it, and then duplicate, duplicate, duplicate to ensure that we use the same line thickness throughout. And there we have it. A beautiful, stunning design, the original coming from the designer Steve Wolf, who was found on Dribbble, which I again highly recommend you search out. But as you can see, with a bit of inspiration and a bit of tenacity, you can recreate almost anything within Canva. Cheers to your great looking design.